I am Colleen. This invisible person next to me is Dana, and we are the Digital Dojo.
Hello.
And we want to help you work on everything in your life, basically, whether it's career or family or finances or anything that love life, anything that matters to you. We use information from the Black Belt Mind and a technique we call NAP to help you clear out the past crap and move forward in a way that you choose.
To the good crap.
To the good crap.
Or as my children used to call it, mom's positive crap.
There we go. Excellent. I like
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
Exactly. So today, just because I think January has been hard on everyone.
I know. We're only 2 weeks in. What's happening? Help us.
That's right.
And we've had a whole slew of people coming in for sessions or coming into a class and going, I want to be here. I want to do this. I am so tired. The idea of doing this work is exhausting. And so we thought we'd talk about why emotional work is actually exhausting and also how to do it without burning out so that you don't have to brace yourself to feel better.
Sounds good. The floor is yours.
Cool.
Thank you.
Can I do some of the science facts first?
I love science.
So I find this fact very interesting. The brain is only about 2% of the body's weight, give or take, but the energy the brain uses every day, depending on which studies you look at, is about 20 to 30% of the glucose, the energy that's burned for your entire body. So people say like, oh, I shouldn't be so tired. I'm just doing emotional work. But you are doing a lot of actual work. I mean, it's 20 to 30% of your calories for the day. So some of that is when you're going back and revisiting memories, when you're releasing protective patterns, when you're creating new circuits. That's the sort of brain equivalent of going for a really, really long walk. But because we're not doing physical things, we don't think we should be exhausted. So, some of the reasons why it is tiring is that people don't trust themselves when they say, oh, I'm tired because of emotional things, so I'm just being dramatic. And it isn't actually dramatic. Evolution, no matter how you do it, takes energy. Another reason for it is people say, oh, it's just processing, which again makes it sound very much just like, oh, it's just a computer doing its thing. But a lot of emotional work is actually brings up our defensive postures. And if we're feeling something, part of the reason we know that we're feeling something emotionally is that we feel it physically. So people will say, oh, I must be stressed. My shoulders are up around my ears. Or, oh, that really hit me. I can feel my throat tightening and I want to cry. So I must be sad. So when people say that they're bracing, they're having all of these old reactions that are emotions, and then their body braces. They start getting hypervigilant about monitoring. They start managing their physiological reactions. And there's basically like processing is an Olympic sport, and we treat it like it's just processing. So some of this is about giving yourself your due and acknowledging that it's actually a crap ton of a lot of work. Shall I keep doing science things, or you have your I'm thinking face on?
Oh, I always have that face on. And I love science. As I'm always prone to do, I love facts and information in detail and then put them through that. How do I practically apply this filter? So if it's useful, I would love to jump into a bit of that right now.
Okay, but then I have to stop monologuing.
Well, but it's so fun when you do. Why would you stop that? I learned tons of stuff when you monologue. So I'm gonna. We've already talked about the dirty E word, emotions. No, those are terrible. Stay away from them. Don't feel anything. I'm gonna up the ante one more and connect that to the dirty S word, spirituality. A big part of the reason why
we're now banned in 17 countries.
That's it. Off the air. Never welcome back. But part of the reason why, and this is from a very practical standpoint in terms of how I apply the black belt mind ideas that I work with on a daily basis with people through all areas of their lives, relationships, business, personal progress, traumas, all that kind of stuff. Part of why I feel, and again, I'm only speaking from my experience, that emotional work, right? As soon as people start thinking about, I gotta feel stuff, and then I gotta deal with the stuff I feel, and then I gotta can I just sweep it all up and put it into a little box over there and just think my way through the day? And usually my answer is a pretty loving, but pretty clear, no, you can't do that because it's going to leave you with half of your guidance system, a very important part of your guidance system, untapped. That's the emotions that we feel. Our emotions come up in order to give us information about our present time environment. Then when we started incorporating that idea and the possibility that actually, yeah, maybe our emotions are hard to deal with because they are actually dealing with our emotions is part of a spiritual practice. Why is it part of a spiritual practice? In the martial arts, we talk about energy all the time, and not just physical energy, but how energy feels, how energy moves when you're applying a technique or when you're trying to learn something new. So the martial arts philosophy that I've grown up with, and the Eastern philosophies and the ways of thinking that apply to martial arts, those kinds of things are spoken about in a very practical way. Because in the West, our tendency is to think that our thinking is the most important thing to do, and our rational process is the way that we're going to solve all the problems of the world scientifically. We tend to get a little bit skittish about the idea of our emotions and, dare I say, any connection that they have to spirituality or spiritual meaning. So when we look at those two ideas from an Eastern perspective, from a perspective that says, well, energy is spirit, spirit is energy. We have energy all around us all the time that we rely upon and interface with that we really don't give a lot of credit to, right? We like to think in our human little brains that our thinking is king or queen, and that's going to handle all the problems of the world. Yet we are very, very feeling, intuitive, energetic beings having a physical experience. And that's really profoundly true when you start looking at human evolution before language. Like before we had words to describe things to each other, we relied upon our intuition a lot. And it was a central part of how we navigated. We knew that we had to trust our feelings. So all of this is to say that part of the reason why, and I think the science will bear this out as I hand it back to Colleen in a minute, is that part of the reason why emotional work is so exhausting is because we're super resistant to it.
Mm-hmm.
We fight it really hard, and we push away from it, and we only do it when we're absolutely on our last leg and totally backed into a corner and we're worn out already and we're overwhelmed, and then maybe we'll start to contemplate why our feelings are so important to our function and why our function is so tied to how we handle, manage, and interact with all this energy around us, the energy within us, the energy in other people, the energy in the atmosphere, the energy in the world, right? So much of our lives are impacted by what we feel. And when we push that aside, it's like trying to hold back a river that's flowing powerfully in one direction with our hands and feet, right? We never feel successful at it. It always overwhelms us. It feels impossible and like a dwindling line of purpose when we're trying to hold back running water that's got force and energy of its own that's moving in the opposite direction that we want it to go or think it should go. Our spiritual and emotional energy is like that. It's everywhere. It's like an ocean that we are constantly swimming in. So instead of trying to pretend that we're on dry land, we got to learn how to swim with the flow a little better. And that is where we start to now work with the resistance as opposed to against it, right? The saying is the path of least resistance for a reason, not no resistance or the path of all resistance. It's least resistance because resistance plays a very, very important role in how we handle the flow of energy in ourselves and from others.
Dana is very big on resistance. Big fan of resistance.
It's a very useful tool.
It
I have a
is.
question, actually.
Of course.
Is I've noticed that part of the formula for that kind of breakthrough work seems to be that surrender phase, like you said, when you're just backed in a corner and you're kind of on your knees
Yes.
going, okay, universe, all right, but that seems to be what opens us up too. Would that be your assessment?
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason that it feels so daunting and it feels so overwhelming and exhausting, because resistance in most people's experience is a negative thing that lives in the ego. And when the ego is exerting its force and it's resisting surrender, it causes our nervous system to go into extreme fight or flight, right? And that's all going on within us, right? So we might be feeling like, oh my God, I'm in this meeting with my boss and I feel so out of my element. I'm like overwhelmed that I'm going to die. We're not being threatened physically in that environment in the external world, but the internal experience that we're having that has the ego asserting itself and insisting that its way and view of what the situation is absolutely has to be right, makes surrender feel like we're standing in front of a solid 6 foot thick brick wall and trying to push it over. Right? Imagine that. We're standing there, we're exerting all this energy to hold that wall, to knock that wall over. And it doesn't care what we're doing at all. It's not moving, it's not responding, it's not reacting to any of our force. And all we're doing is exhausting ourselves, exerting energy in a fruitless direction. Do that for long enough, we're bound to collapse. We're going to fall over. We're going to be exhausted. We're going to be dejected and discouraged. That's often when the intuitive part of us wakes up and says, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't need to push this wall down. Maybe I can just, I don't know, walk around it. Oh yeah, as I walk, there's a door over there. I can just walk through the door. And then it starts to look for.
I like that your internal voice sounds like a mobster from Chicago.
Oh, I wasn't even trying.
Now see here, mister.
I've been watching too many movies. James Cagney.
Sorry, please keep going.
No, that's hilarious. Wasn't even aware of that. But that's where we then start breaking away from like our rational A to B to C linear thinking, and we start feeling our way through the world again. And something leads us to walk down 50 yards down the wall because, well, what else can I do? There's nothing else I can do. And I don't know, that just feels better than sitting here being exhausted. And then we walk and then we find the door and we see that the door's open. We can walk through the wall. It starts to open us up to following the sense of possibility around us. And that lends itself to being more and more open to going with the flow, to honoring what you're feeling as information, not as obstacle, to open yourself up to like listen deeply to yourself and to the calling of the things that feel more vibrationally resonant and feel more alive to you than the things you think are supposed to be the solution.
This?
Yes.
Science.
Yay.
So we talk a lot about the heart, the brain, and the gut. And I think that's part of this on how to move forward. Because when you referenced, people have to get to that point of surrender. And we usually fight tooth and nail before we get to that place of surrender. I love your reframe. I was going to say Dana. Sorry, in my family we don't call people by their actual names. We only ever use nicknames. So that is such a beautiful way to look at it. And I think another way we can look at it is that we are listening to the wrong parts of our body. So we talk in here all the time about how your gut is where you remember what happened in the past, especially the fearful things. So that gut reaction is often, we talk about a negative reaction. And the brain is about thinking about where we want to go in the future. And then the heart is very much in the present. Part of what's really cool to me is neurons, which I love that science goes, this is the way it is. And then fast forward a day or a decade and they go, oops. So neurons, brain cells that only exist in the brain, don't you know? There are a ton of neurons in your gut, and there are neurons in your heart. So you have brain cells that allow your heart and your gut to think independently of your brain, which it octopuses, I think it's octopuses, by the way, all of the octopus people in the world, they have basically neurons in each arm. So each arm can be doing something independently and it's not taking up their brain power. So we do the same thing, except we have the brain, the heart, the gut. And so if you process everything through your heart, you're processing the future from the brain and the past from the gut. And when you're making those choices, then you don't have to fight tooth and nail to get to that place of surrender. Because oftentimes that's either the brain going, well, no, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to look like this. Or it's the gut going, oh, crap, the last time we did this, it was terrible. Please run far, run fast.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the heart gets us nice and present. One of the things that I was reading said, because emotional work is bringing up old patterns, and then the reaction of our nervous systems is so fast, and we're working to change old expectations, which is a ton of work. It said trying to change your interior world at full speed is like trying to meditate in a nightclub. And right? So that's some of that, like push, push, push until you collapse. So don't do that. That's the short answer. Don't do that.
Well, and that kind of connects to part of what we were talking about last week about perfectionism and the stress that we get from trying to be right all the time is super exhausting because none of us can be. And instead, what our emotional, spiritual guidance system is primed to do is to not be accurate in terms of right or wrong, but it's to be accurate in terms of resonance, which really just means to move towards things that feel more and more resonant, that feel more and more truthful to you. And that's a skill, just like a martial arts skill or a musical skill or a trade skill that you can build with practice. I think of it this way, and I talk about this in the dojo all the time. Think about our gut, our heart, and our head as wheels of a tricycle, right? They're all three wheels. They've all got a function that they need to perform in rolling the tricycle, moving the vehicle forward. If one wheel of that tricycle is pointed in one direction and the other wheel is pointed in the other direction, and then the steering wheel is wobbly and pointed in an entirely different direction than the other two, how much resistance, literal physical resistance, are you going to feel in trying to move that vehicle forward smoothly? Right? You're going to be pedaling your tail off and not really going anywhere that feels like you can control it, that feels like you are moving with purpose and that you're moving with any ease, because three things out of alignment can't function together smoothly. So that's what then makes us feel like, oh, well, I've got to rely upon my gut and I'm just going to react to everything with fear and think about the past where I was afraid and I'm going to just be reactionary all the time. Or that's why I've got to just, think my way through things constantly. I've got to be cold and objective and be full of anxiety, worrying about the future. Rarely do people follow their heart. And often when people do that, when they're out of alignment, like when their gut and their head aren't working in unison with the things that their intuition and their heart are telling them, they feel like they're making big mistakes because they're like, oh, I let my feelings take over and I just jumped into the fray and then I got burned and I lost stuff. That's where the problem is. And I would call that problem misalignment. So when we're out of alignment, and this is a really powerful idea in the martial arts, we don't worry so much about what the other person is doing more than we focus on making sure that what we're doing comes from proper alignment, proper posture. In fact, the word for that in Japanese is called kamai, and it means not just physical posture, but mental posture, emotional posture. Ultimately, all those things contribute to spiritual posture, how you're holding your own energy in relationship to all the energy in you and all the energy around you. if you have good posture, if you face that with intention, then going with the flow, finding and following the path of least resistance is much, much, much easier and much more inspiring to attempt because it feels good. So the problem really isn't with the emotional work necessarily in terms of it wearing us out and it being so hard. I have tons of empathy for why people feel that. And I felt that too, because it's part of kind of what we're taught. It's the way we're conditioned. We're not taught to listen to our intuition. We're not taught to feel deeply into our energy and understand what information it's trying to give us. We're taught to be rational and smart and think our way through everything. So the problem with that approach is that it makes us feel like, well, emotional work's really, really hard. I'm like, well, sure, riding a tricycle without the wheels all pointing in the same direction and a proper way to steer it, yeah, that's super hard. But it's not hard because riding a tricycle is hard. It's hard because riding a tricycle with no alignment is really hard. That's the part that's exhausting, not the emotional work, not the intuitive work, not the spiritual work, not the things that turn into giving you a better sense of meaning and purpose. And really, that's, at least in my humble opinion, what spirituality is all about. It's about the things that connect us to our our deepest sense of meaning and our highest purpose. So when people are exhausted by life and get backed into that corner where they feel like they're struggling and flailing and they're just like, oh God, I got to give up and surrender. There's nothing I can think of to do. That's often why breakthroughs occur, because that's when we have to, out of absolute necessity. It's like taking a breath. We can't walk around holding our breath the whole time and then wonder why we start to feel desperate and scared and overwhelmed and frantic. That surrender gives us a chance to breathe in a deeper sense of meaning and a higher sense of purpose. It reconnects us to everything. And that allows us to start moving forward to what we are truly called to, as opposed to doing all the shoulds. That's exhausting.
I think that ties into safety as well,
Most definitely.
because when there's a joke that we have in the clinic, which is there are 3 rules of what's most important for people to get some actual good real work done. The first one is safety, the second one is safety, and the third one is safety. And if people aren't feeling safe enough, all of that fight and flight kicks up and we slide into coping patterns, and you're fighting yourself to move forward. And I don't care if you are Amelia Earhart crossed with Albert Einstein, like, you're not beating your safety part of your brain. Like, that's going to win. It's going to make sure it wins. So finding work that's safe, working with people that's safe, that feels safe to you, using processes that feel safe to you, that's what's going to get you forward momentum without feeling like you've just run a marathon. And one of the NAP, one of the techniques that we use, the new agreement process, one of the things that we say in every NAP round is, once you've identified the problem, you say, yeah, and it makes sense that I did that. I wasn't doing that for bad reasons, because we don't do things for bad reasons or no reasons. We might do something we don't enjoy, or we afterwards look back and think was stupid, but that's our brain doing its best to keep us safe. So when we can acknowledge that and go, great, good for me, it worked, I'm here, then we don't have to fight through all the triggers and the shame and the blame and the, I'm so ridiculous, I can't believe I did that again. So celebrate the things you did that got you here, because they worked and you're here. That's my public service announcement for the day. And with some of that, I think people trying to think their way through things, I love thinking. Like, thinking's fun for me. I've taken a lot of schooling because it's fun. I like learning things. And more, I don't care what I think anymore. Um, I care what is present in the moment. I care what feels good and right. Um, when we try to cognate our way through emotional work, that's sort of like trying to bake your way through building a house. Like you could eventually get the gingerbread walls up, I guess, but it's going to take a bunch of time and effort. And there's those numbers from Bruce Lipton, right? So the conscious mind processes about 40 bits of data per second. The rest of your brain and nervous system process about 20 million, sorry, billion bits of data. Wait, what did I say? 40 million bits of data per second.
20 million bits of data.
20 million bits of data
Yes.
per second.
Still lots more than 40.
Lots more than 40. And I mean, and we do wonderful things with 40. You can drive a car on 40. That's kind of incredible. We can write music on 40 bits of data per second. That's incredible. But that is not where most of the heavy lifting is coming in. So any technique that you're using, whether that's doing something like nap, whether that's journaling, whether that's music therapy, whether that's jogging. I mean, I say this as someone who thinks that jogging is wrong. It's just very, I mean, for other people, good on you. But for people who are kinesthetic processors, it's a wonderful thing. But anything that allows your brain, your nervous system, your body to do that processing without you having to think your way through, that is going to be way, way faster.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm very struck by this conversation, as I usually am, and I'm so excited to be here with you, Nicole, and for us to be here with you and to connect with your audience, because like these ideas are so important to me, and not because of any kind of false aggrandizement in order to exalt us or any ideas that we've got, but just to share. I get really deeply excited about sharing these ideas because I see the practical reality of their use like every day. And what Colleen's just talking about and the science that goes behind it, you know, again, in that spirit of trying to make this really practical for everyone, makes me think of exercises that we do in the dojo. And one of the things that, like I've said to the audience before, and I'm sure I'll say lots. So I've been training martial arts pretty much my whole life. And it's one of those passions that has been gifted to me because I was excited about learning it. I was excited about growing in it. And then I was excited about discovering that there was a very different reason that got me into it than the one that's keeping me in it. And part of that is because of the literal, and I'm using this word very deliberately, inspiration that I experience people discover and see and witnessing them discovering. What I mean by that is the human brain and your eyes, right? We rely upon what we see. We rely upon what we think about what we see out in the world. When you're teaching a person that's never trained before how to handle a punch or a kick coming their way. Okay?
Use my technique. Put your hands over your head and go, I'm a nice person. Why are you doing that?
Okay. And you see them growing in fear and frustration more and more and more and more and more around the idea that they can't do anything about that. Like they can't protect themselves from that punch. They can't do anything but stand there and get hit by that punch. The only way that they could think of handling that punch is to run away from that punch. Okay. Because by the time your brain, not our minds or our spirit, but our actual physical brain tracks the movement of a punch and you look at it with your eyes and try to stop it from a visual perspective, it's already hit you because our physical brains can't process that information fast enough. So we do a little drill where we're not, it's called touch drill, slap drill, touch drill. We're not slapping anybody, but what we're doing is we're throwing a punch from a position that you would throw in a proper martial arts scenario with proper technique. And we're just using it to touch the person. We're going, okay, well, I'm going to touch your head now. And we tell them, I'm going to touch your head. I'm going to touch your shoulder. I'm going to touch your chest. I'm going to touch your other shoulder. Okay. And we let them know that we're going to do it, but we don't tell them exactly when. And we do it. And we say, okay, do your best to stop me. The problem is that without developing an intuitive sense and a very practical, grounded way of what's happening, the person grows increasingly frustrated because they feel that there's literally nothing they can do to not be to stop being touched, right? So if I say, well, I'm going to throw a punch like action, I'm not going to punch you, but I'm just going to throw my arm out like I was punching, and I'm going to touch you right in the center of your forehead. I'm just not going to tell you when I'm going to do it, but it's going to be within the next 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it is. They know it's coming. They know exactly where it's coming to. I can do it in a way because I'm relaxed and can initiate it without telegraphing. They can't stop it. Their eyes can't catch it fast enough. By the time they see it, it's already touched them. Okay. That's such a powerful, to me anyways, I hope it makes sense to everyone, one, because I'm so excited about sharing it. That's such a powerful, practical example of the things that we're talking about. Because, man, people get frustrated and discouraged and down, and they get angry and irritated by the fact that they can't think their way through stopping something that they know is coming. I mean, even that statement right there to me is like, oh, hey, hello, anxiety. Talk about how we feel about life in general. I know I've got to get up and go to work tomorrow. I'm feeling anxious about it. I know it's coming. I know I have to navigate through traffic and make sure I'm on time, and I'm frustrated and worried that I'm going to be late. And yet, with all the thinking, with all the preparedness that you put in place, you still find yourself racing out the door at the last second, getting in the car frustrated and sweaty because you're still hot from your shower and you spilled coffee on your shirt and racing through traffic, frantic that you're going to be late. So no wonder we get overwhelmed. No wonder we feel so just burdened by this whole thing called the human condition at times. I get it. And I feel for any of us and all of us that are in that position now or have ever felt like we're in that position. But it's also the place, like your question earlier spoke to, Nicole, that we can find a new kind of joy in surrender. So in the dojo, when we've gotten people trying that drill, and then they realize that they know it's coming, they think it's coming, they try to predict when it's coming, but they're always a second behind, a day late and a dollar short, as the saying goes. They can't stop being, when we do that drill, they can't stop being touched, and they can't control anything that happens around how, one of us as the black belts or instructors will do that to them. Once they get frustrated enough and they finally start kind of surrender and give up, thinking that there's no way that they're ever going to be able to do that, they should probably stop training. Why do they think they could ever do it in the first place? That's when the door opens up. That's when all of a sudden we're like, okay, cool. Here's the thing I want you to do. Okay. Close your eyes. All I want you to focus on is breathing and keeping your body relaxed. Stay in good posture. Stay in good position. Once you've settled in that space, open your eyes. Don't look to see where my hand is going as I do the drill with you, and then react to that. Start to let yourself feel it. And they're like, what are you talking about, man? But it's such a beautiful thing to watch them get grounded, get present, breathe, open, right? To literally, through their own breath, inspire themselves, right? That's why the word inspire is opposite of the word expire. Inspire is to breathe inspiration inwardly, to take in air, to bring in life. Expire is to do the opposite of that. Once they start responding from that place, it's like, no joke. It's not Mr. Miyagi magic Karate Kid stuff. It's a rewiring of their nervous system in real time. But before you know it, they're like, can tell when the punch is coming. They can start to make one or two movements that either help them block the punch or move out of the way of the punch in ways that almost feel miraculous to them. I've seen that every day for, I'm going to date myself here, but for my 50 years of martial arts practice, I watch people go through that transformation regularly. It's a normal thing to me. And that what that does for their confidence, what that does for their feeling of safety is, I would not trade being honored to witness that and that growth in people for the world.
That sounds amazing. That's why I always used to do. I didn't just sit at home listening to tapes. It was tapes back in the day.
Mhm.
myself as well. But physically, like I went to tons of enlightened warrior camps and that kind of stuff where
Mhm.
you're doing hard stuff, and that's when you really get it because it's on a whole, the physical metaphors that you learn through that then translate into energetic and consciousness stuff is huge,
Oh, it's
huge.
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I think that's one of the ways I describe, the martial arts journey to people who want to start walking it, who are brand new and never done it before. I'm like, well, the only difference between a white belt and a black belt, and they blows their mind when I say this, but it starts to make sense if they stick with it. The only difference between a white belt and a black belt, the only difference between me and the dojo as the head of my dojo and our dojo and a person who comes in who's brand new is that I surrender faster. That's the difference. I surrender much faster. And they're like, what do you mean? I thought you're supposed to be tough and be able to fight hard and be able to scrap it out. And I'm like, no, but I'm not talking about I surrender to you as my opponent faster. I just surrender to the acceptance of the reality that I'm in faster. I surrender to the information that my feelings are trying to give me faster. I surrender to the presence of resistance faster. And in fact, and this is just a practice, and then I'm going to touch on that a little bit if we got time too. But I've practiced surrendering so much for so long, which really is just the acknowledgement of like, oh, there are things out there that are bigger and more powerful than me. When you practice that kind of surrender, it's terrifying at first. I completely understand it was for me. But as you get comfortable and you get comfortable through the practice of it and the discipline of practicing that, not only do you not fear surrender, you recognize its value to the point where you start looking for it. Okay. And wherever surrender exists, resistance and the sense of resistance has been handled beautifully just before it. So what I mean by that is that when you then recognize that, hey, wait a second, there's a lot of value and power and beauty and joy in surrender in the manner that we're speaking about, right? People think that word means losing or being defeated. It's not about that necessarily, or even if we speak of it in that way, it's about losing the influence of your own ego, right? Why is that important? Because it allows you to open up more truly to your authentic spiritual self. Losing the desire to win all the time and be right all the time and just accept what's happening in your environment as if it's a gift from the universe. And that's a really tough thing for people to do. And I get totally why that stuff. It's still tough for me to do it sometimes. And I've been practicing that type of specific for surrender for most of my life. But it's in a place now where it brings me so much freedom, openness, connection, and joy that even when the times when it is tough, I'll still do my best to do it because I know on the other side of that resistance and that surrender and the way it looks from the ego side is full of fear. I know that if I cross that threshold and just let my intuition guide me and follow and accept what's present in the moment, I'll end up in freedom. I'll end up in absolute inspiration and a feeling of really, really, really powerful connection to, that thing that I feel as if I'm afraid of that's bigger than me. I'm now connected to it. How's that feel? That's pretty cool. Okay. And there's a lot of practical application to that. All those ideas.
I'm going to summarize for people
That's great.
because we
Can you tell I'm a little excited about this topic? Can you tell that I'm a little passionate about just discussing these ideas?
Love it.
so because we said we'd give people ways to not be exhausted by emotional work and doing processing work, and so I want to make sure that we actually are giving people those. So far I have 9 points. So point number 1 is pick a technique that works for you and feels good, and that's like the most important thing, because if you do that, then you're not going to hate doing the work. I don't do belly dancing like you do, Nicole, but it brings me joy. It doesn't feel like a workout work. It doesn't feel like going to the gym and
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
fighting with Gizmo for the 60-pound barbell.
A story from last week. So tune in if you want the references for that story.
Point number 2, focus on safety. make sure the technique feels safe, make sure the practitioner feels safe, make sure that the memories that you're accessing feel safe, because if you do not have safety, you're not going to get anywhere. Realize that progress means surrendering to the process. So once you have found the place of safety in there, might as well do it sooner than later and save yourself some time and some glucose burning in your brain. And then this is a huge part of AAA, a huge part of all the work we do. Don't blame yourself, because you did what you did for a reason. And honestly, every time we work with somebody and they say, I've done this terrible thing, when we finally find the reason, I tend to go, holy crap, that's awesome. That's amazing. I'm so proud of it. Like, I'm so impressed that you did that. And then let's find the value and information in the resistance. That was another one. And then we have only 3 more. So I'm going to rephrase part of what you were just saying, which is get info from your ego, but don't imagine it's the truth.
Right. That's good. I don't know if I've ever heard you say it like that before, but that's awesome.
Because your ego really wants you to look good, and it decides what that means. And so it lies to you all the time. It really does. And everybody else's egos are lying to them, so that's fine. So I started to get much better at doing my job in the clinic when I stopped caring about being smart or getting it right. And then just started going, okay, what do you need? What can I do for you? And then all of a sudden things started moving. And then there's 2 more that we haven't really addressed. Should we address them while we still have a bit of time?
Yes, please.
Okay. One that's fast, and which is something that if you are listening in, we will probably talk about all the time. We are always talking about AAA, which is acknowledge, accept, agree. And part of that refers to anything we do, there is an agreement in place about how it feels, about what it means, about what we do in that moment. And when you realize that you are allowed to change any agreement in your life, that means you can change anything in your life. You have choice everywhere. And when people feel like they don't have choice, that's when things feel terrible. And that's when our brains shut down. And they've done studies where when people do something out of choice, even when it's hard, they actually get serotonin and dopamine and happy little brain chemicals. And when they do it, but they feel like they don't have a choice, they do the exact same thing, but they don't get any happy brain chemicals. So it feels like one more place where we're being pushed around by our past or by the people around us, or the universe hates us because we've forgotten that we have choice, and we've forgotten that we can change any agreement, including meaning. Right? So Dana's talking about martial arts techniques, which means, oh, it is a day that ends in Y. Sorry, I had to. So if my ego decides, or if the agreement is, oh, he's talking about martial art techniques because he thinks he's so much more important than I am, because he has 7,000 black belts and I only have 1. Well, then every time he talks about any of that, the agreement is he thinks I suck. Well, I'm allowed to change that agreement, and I have the power to change that agreement. I don't need him to stop talking about martial arts techniques. I get to change the trigger in me that's causing that to feel like a personal attack, rather than something that is he's excited about, and a language that he speaks fluently. So that is the second to last one, which is realize you were like everything in your life is an agreement, and you are allowed to change any of it. Do you have any thoughts on that before I do our last point?
Just simply that most of the quote unquote agreements that we have trouble with in life are the ones that we were taught that we didn't realize we were taught. The ones that we are doing unconsciously and automatically just because that's what the people before us did, and that's what we're supposed to do, and that's how we should navigate the world. As soon as we recognize that those agreements are agreements that we can change and choose to believe in, have meaning with, and find purpose in, we're entirely transformed. I mean, and that's, I don't say that flippantly, like really it's a massive deal. It's a powerful shift to go, oh, wait a second. Well, why am I doing that thing? Oh, because I was taught to. Huh, do I agree with that? Does that feel authentic to me? Oh, it does? Okay, great. I'll keep doing that. Oh, no, it doesn't at all. I just did that because that's what my dad did. So that's what I should do. No, what do I actually want to do in comparison? When we recognize that there's opportunity and freedom in that choice and in the space that that choice creates, it's literally life changing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I lied. There's two more. There's two more important things. Um, and I'm going to mention them both very quickly because we're going to spend probably an entire hour on each one at some point in time. Second to last one, every time you move forward and you do something that works and you feel better afterwards, celebrate your successes because A, it's going to tweak your brain chemistry, but also that 20 million bits of data part of your system goes, oh, you celebrated that? Oh, you want me to do that again? I can do that again. And so many of us, we make progress and then we go, okay, well, better make dinner, better go back to work, better do all the things, as opposed to, I am apparently fabulous and awesome and brilliant, or at the very least, holy crap, I can do this. So celebrate is the second to last one. And then the last one, to make emotional work not feel exhausting, and it ties into safety and it ties into changing agreements, is recognize that anything that has shame in it is a lie.
Mm.
And that is, we cannot say enough about that. I see Dana's face wanting to say things. So um I I almost never use absolutes, but I cannot think of a single case where shame was not a lie that I have read about, heard about, interacted with. It's just flat out bogus.
Well, it's also one of the, emotional conditions that we aren't naturally born with.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Right? We're born with the capacity to feel embarrassed. We're born with the capacity to feel guilty. And in a mindful, well-intended person, those two capacities are super useful for the development of character. It's good to have a sense of when you might be embarrassing someone because you understand what it feels like to be embarrassed yourself. It's good to have a sense of when actually true guilt for something that you might have done intentionally or unintentionally is a necessary part of your conscience and good character. But shame is something that we're taught. And we could have a whole conversation on this. I
Yes.
understand why shame as a tool has been used throughout human history and evolution to a certain extent in terms of uh, the kind of threat that shame is, because shame is the threat of isolation. Shame is the threat of judgment that says you have no value. Not just what you do has no value, but you inherently have no value. And that's such a contrary idea to the truth of what we actually are and what we're supposed to experience in this place that we're in right now, called this physical earth and all the things that it manifests. But shame isn't natural.
Yeah.
So because, like, look at a baby when it cries and pees and poops and laughs and throws up, and it's just where it is, and it expresses what it needs to express without shame. So we can't tell each other with any real, I don't know, confidence. And we tell each other this all the time, unfortunately, because we're taught to. But if we really think about it, well, no baby is born with shame, and no baby thinks that what they naturally are inherently drawn to do is something to be ashamed of. So when we recognize that how powerful the lie of shame actually is. And it makes sense because if shame is the tool of control and isolation, and I tell you, well, you should be ashamed. Man, when we were first evolving, if you were cut off from your people, if you were ejected from the tribe, if you were kicked out of the village, you were dead.
Yeah.
You didn't make it.
Yeah.
And so I think we still have that inherent in our DNA to be very, very sensitive to shame and to cower at its presentation and to wilt under the threat of it. But when we feel connected, when we feel aligned, when we feel like we are here because we deserve and have the right to be here with all the other things that are here, shame becomes much easier to understand, see through, and handle. And that's also part of what makes that emotional work so exhausting, is because in order to get to it truthfully, we unfortunately, because of our conditioning, have to fight through layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of shame around honoring our own feelings. Our emotions are something to be ashamed of, as we're conditioned to and taught. But if that's true, you notice how people really only shame things that have a lot of power, potentially? Then that means that our emotions actually aren't something that we should be denying and running away from. It means that, those things called our emotions are actually a very powerful part of our emotional, spiritual compass and guidance system.
So, um, on my side of our partnership, we have two nephews and a niece, and when they were all quite young, there was a party at my sister's house, and we'd spent all day getting everything ready, and there was somebody who was there earlier than the other guests, and one of my nephews went over to uh, get something to eat because they were, 3 and hungry. And this person who was there gave them a dressing down and basically did the whole like, oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. That's for the guests and you can't do that. And you should be ashamed that you want what you want and you're being greedy. And you can see this kid going, it's my house and I'm hungry. And also, why would I be ashamed of wanting to make sure I take care of myself? And just continued and continued and continued. So this this kid kind of goes, okay, okay, and sort of looks sad, which even at the time seemed suspect to me. But I thought, part of me was like, oh no, like, are they believing this, that you should be ashamed of taking care of yourself? And crawled under the table with the big long tablecloth. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to go find him later and make sure that he's not too upset. So this kid waits until this person walks away, and then I see this little hand come up, feel around on the table, grab something, pulls it underneath, has a bite, doesn't like it, puts it back on the table.
Love it.
And it was just this great moment of, you can be ashamed if you want, but I get to take care of myself. So that is our list for the world at large.
Well, it's a good dang list. I think a lot more conversation about how to clear the shame crap. That's a huge
Most
topic. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
right?
Which we can have because we're going to talk to you next week.
Yay!
Woohoo!
All right. Well, oh my God, we're at the top of the hour. Oh,
I
that
know,
went
right?
so fast.
Doesn't make sense how
It
fast that
doesn't
went.
make sense. I know. But what we does make sense is doing some shameless self-promotion before you run off. So, what do you got for us?
Cool. What we have is spending a ridiculous amount of time updating the website because it is very exciting. We have some new audios for people. We talked about them last time. I said they would probably be up by Monday. That wasn't true. But it wasn't true because we got super excited about them. So there's now 3 sets of audios. So for all 3 sets of audios, the first 3 nights are free, so people can try them and see what they like in them and see what works for them. So they're hypno-somatic nap rounds. So we give you some information, some really gentle hypnotic, like, get in your body, really become aware of what's going on. And then we do a nap round and then a positive nap round along with the information about the topic that we're clearing. And literally, rather than having to do hard work, all you have to do is press play and, hang out and listen. It's awesome to do on your way to bed, and your subconscious can keep processing while you sleep. So there's the ones that we have on there and that will be live, she says, hopefully by tomorrow, but I swear they will be up by Monday at the latest. There's 3 nights that you can access for free on how to deal with cravings, whether that's smoking or drinking or snacking or scrolling on your phone or being a perfectionist. There's 3 nights on that, of the top 3 reasons scientifically, but also what we found in the clinic, of shifting these patterns means those cravings fall away naturally. We've got 3 nights on chronic pain and the emotional and energetic patterns that can lodge chronic pain in the body. And then we've got 3 nights of a program called Unweighted, which is around metabolism, weight, and body image issues. And that program we've already got built out. So if the 3 nights are free for all of them, if people are really inspired, if they find the unweighted one useful, they can actually buy the whole program. And of course, News for the Soul people at half price. And the other ones we're asking people to vote because we've got a list of ones that we're excited to do audios over, and people are really finding that things are changing and they're not having to do hard work. So hop on there, try them for free, send us an email, say what you'd like built out first, or if there's a new topic that you want done. We're thinking of doing one on money soon. We're thinking of doing one on studying soon, on anxiety and depression. We'd love to know what people want first. And then we want everybody to have at least 3 days worth without having to pay for them so you can feel some momentum. And the really cool part of that is the effects aren't just in that category. So I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying, hey, I've been doing the unweighted ones. And yes, I'm noticing that I don't care about snacking. And yes, I'm craving vegetables, which is awesome. But also my house is half clean as opposed to not clean because suddenly it doesn't seem like effort to just pick up some laundry on the way into the bedroom. So the spillover is really cool.
Interesting.
All of that is available at the digitaldojo.net,
Oh, yeah.
where we have all of those things listed, all of our social platforms available with tons and tons of information and content that we'd love you to come and check out, because you can, and you can get access to things basically instantly in terms of long things, short things, free things, all kinds of things that, of course, we have at 50% off for all of our News for the Soul listeners. Please feel free, because they're all there to support the idea that, hey, maybe it's valuable, maybe it's useful to contemplate the possibility that paying attention to how you feel is actually the most important thing you can do for yourself. So please join us there anytime, at any hour, 24/7. You can access any information, because apparently, as we cannot seem to hide, we have lots to talk about and share with you. And I'm already excited about being back with you next week.